Hello everybody, my name is Caitlin and welcome back to my channel where we discuss all things horror. And today, of course, we are talking about the new Jordan Peele film, Nope. So as you can see from the title of this video, Nope was a disappointment for me, and I really hate that I'm saying that. Out of all the films coming out this year, this is the one that I wanted to like the most. This is the one that at the end of the year when I'm doing my top 10 best of list, I wanted this one at number 1. And I walked out of this movie just feeling really meh about it. Before I go any further, I do want to say this is going to be a spoiler review, so please keep that in mind if you haven't seen the film yet. Just to give some context to my mindset going into this film, like many people, I am a huge fan of Jordan Peele's first film, Get Out. Get Out is one of the few films that I went and saw in the theater multiple times when it came out. I thought it was not only the best film the year that it came out, but also one of the best horror films that I'd seen in quite a long time. And I know every film is not going to be Get Out. I feel like Get Out was just kind of one of those anomaly films that you only get once every few years. And I will say, I wasn't going into Nope thinking that it was going to be Get Out. I feel like I actually had pretty modest expectations for Nope. And part of that had to do with the fact that I was also not a huge fan of Jordan Peele's second film, Us. Us was a film that I thought had a really interesting concept, but it just kind of lost me in the third act. So that film overall didn't really work for me. I will say, I think that Nope is a step up from Us. I do think it is better. I think it's more coherent. But I also think the two films share a lot of the same problems. So before I get into talking about the things that didn't work for me, I do want to talk about the things that I did enjoy about this film. I thought it was pretty cool seeing an alien UFO film in theaters again. I feel like we haven't had one of those in a really long time. And while I feel like this is more in the realm of sci-fi thriller rather than horror, there are definitely a lot of creepy moments throughout this film. I thought the alien abduction scenes were pretty effective. He only gives you brief glimpses of people getting sucked up into the UFO and you can see them. They're in a very tight space. It almost looks like they're suffocating and they're screaming. There's a scene after the aliens abduct a bunch of people where the UFO is flying over the farmhouse of our protagonist and the spaceship opens up and it just starts raining blood, like the blood of the people that the aliens abducted, all over the house. And I loved that shot. It was very well done. It was super creepy. It looked very disturbing. I also found the scenes with Gordy the chimpanzee to be very disturbing and very unsettling, and some of the most upsetting scenes in the entire film, especially when considering some of the themes of this film, such as this idea of spectatorship, of being drawn to spectacle, and the abuse that we put both animals and people through for the sake of entertainment. Although I will say that scene with Gordy did kind of lose me at the end when they do the close-up of the chimpanzee and you can tell that it's obviously a CGI chimpanzee. And I totally understand that they were not able to use a real one for that scene. I get it. I also feel like using a real chimpanzee for that scene probably would have gone against the messaging that they were trying to send. It did take me out of the film for a second, although I'm also not quite sure if that was intentional on Jordan Peele's part. So much of this film has to deal with spectatorship, and throughout it I was questioning if there weren't parts where Jordan Peele was trying to do like a Hitchcockian thing where he was trying to make you as the audience aware of the fact that you're watching a film and make you aware of the fact that you are a spectator in the moment. If that was the intention, then that is pretty cool considering the film's themes. And speaking of the film's themes, I thought Nope had a lot of really interesting ideas that it was playing with. As I already mentioned, you have the theme around spectacle and spectatorship and just the lengths that we as human beings go to either create spectacle or just watch it. The strange allure that we have to spectacle, no matter how gruesome or grotesque it is. There's also a lot of exploration around our culture's obsession with things like aliens or Bigfoot. This desire to find proof of something larger than us, something bigger than us. The proof that we're not the only ones floating in this universe. There are other beings out there, which I think is very much connected to our desire for proof or belief in some sort of higher power, some sort of god-like figure. At the end of the film, you see the UFO, it changes its physical appearance and morphs into what looks like almost this large angel-like figure just kind of floating in space. There's also themes around the abuse of animals for entertainment. This film makes a lot of references to old Hollywood, and in old Hollywood, especially Westerns, they were known for actually hurting and brutalizing horses and other animals just to get that perfect shot. And then of course there's also commentary on things like social media, everybody wanting to be a celebrity these days. Daniel Kaluuya's character has a line, I think around the second act, where he's talking about how he and his sister need to get proof of the aliens before everyone else starts finding out that there's aliens at their ranch. Because once other people know what's going on, they're all gonna show up and want to take their own photos and their own videos for their own selfish purposes so that they can get famous and get money off of it. There's the joke of TMZ showing up at one point and trying to get footage. And you have the TMZ guy who gets knocked off of his motorcycle by the aliens, and his only concern in that moment is like, where's my camera? Take a picture of me, make sure that you get the shot. So again, a lot of themes around spectatorship, around this celebrity culture that we have, this desire to be celebrities, the desire to not only see but also become a spectacle. So I enjoyed all of these ideas and themes that he had. I found the concept of a bad miracle to be really interesting, but by the end, all of these themes just didn't quite come together well. I feel like he didn't quite stick the landing. I think for me, the biggest problem I had with this film is that I saw the themes that he was trying to get across. I just wasn't sure what I was supposed to walk away with as an audience member. And I think part of the reason for that is because the characters in this film are a little ambiguous and they're a little two-dimensional. I mean, we have our protagonists that are acting like everyone else. Their only real goal throughout this film is to get the perfect shot of this alien UFO so that they can then go, I guess, sell it to like media companies and get famous and get money for the farm. I don't know, I just felt like the film ended and our characters didn't really learn anything. It didn't feel like they changed at all from the beginning of the film to the end of the film. For me, the characters were the most disappointing aspect of the film. I love all of these actors, especially Daniel Kaluuya, who I feel like is the best actor in Hollywood working today. I mean, he just elevates everything that he's in. But I feel like the film didn't really utilize him that much. I feel like the script didn't give him a lot to do. He spends most of the movie seeming depressed, which is fine because at the beginning of the film it sets up that he just lost his father. He watched his father die tragically. So it's understandable that he would be depressed about that. But then you have his sister Emerald, and she's very loud and boisterous and kind of all over the place, and she doesn't seem very sad about the fact that they just lost their father. Like, for a brother and sister that just lost their dad, they barely talk about him. You have the one scene where Keke Palmer is talking about how when she was a kid, she had this horse, Jean Jacket, that her dad was gonna teach her how to train. And then he ended up not teaching her how to train Jean Jacket. He ended up teaching Daniel Kaluuya's character instead. And she always seemed to have some resentment about that. But that's really all we get about her relationship to her father. And so I was questioning, like, okay, I understand that you have some resentment about this horse when you were a kid, but is there anything else? Is that all that defines your relationship with your father? Because she did not seem sad about the fact that he had just passed away only a few months ago. And we don't really get much of a sense of Daniel Kaluuya, his character OJ's relationship to the dad either. It would have been nice just to bookend the beginning of the film with the end of the film if there was something like some sort of skill either related to horses or maybe using a lasso, I don't know. But like something that maybe the dad had taught them when they were younger. A specific skill that maybe when they were younger they didn't think much of, but now that they're adults and they're facing off against this UFO, they can use that skill to help them defeat the aliens. I feel like something like that would have been a nice way to bring everything full circle with the dad. I also would have liked a stronger brother-sister relationship between OJ and Emerald. I feel like we only got very brief, quick moments of them that actually felt like a genuine brother-sister relationship, especially after seeing something like The Black Phone a couple weeks ago, which had a great relationship between two siblings. As for the other characters, they also felt a bit random. You have Steven Yeun's character Ricky, who is a former child star and now he owns this family theme park. And you discover that he was present for the whole incident with Gordy the chimpanzee when they were on the TV show together, and Gordy ends up going crazy and kills his whole cast. And so they seem to be hinting that that was a obviously traumatic moment for him. He has a whole shrine to Gordy in the back of his office. And yet, despite going through this traumatic incident, he is also swept up with this idea of spectacle and creating spectacles. You discover that he is buying horses off of OJ and then using them as bait for the aliens. He's like feeding the horses to the aliens. And I would have liked to know a little bit more about his motivation. Like, why is he trying to bait these aliens and get the UFO to show up at his show? He went through this traumatic incident with Gordy and seeing the horrific consequences that can happen when you abuse animals for entertainment, yet he does it himself as an adult. And I just wanted to know the why a little bit more. Like, was it something where after the Gordy incident, he saw all of the attention and fame and money that could come from a horrific spectacle like that, and that's his motivation for wanting to try to recreate something like that? It seemed like that's what the film was going for, but I wasn't quite sure. And then his character ends up getting sucked up by the UFO in like the end of the second act, and we never see him again. I have to be honest and say I was not a fan of the character Angel. I'm not sure why he was a main character in this film. I feel like he's someone that should have been in one scene and that was it. I just felt like we spent a lot of time with him and his character's problems, and I feel like that time could have been better well spent with OJ and Emerald and building their relationship. So I don't know, overall I just felt like his character didn't need to be in this film. It felt like he was just there as a plot device and to help move the story forward and nothing more. You have this old filmmaker, cinematographer that comes in towards the third act of the film to help them capture the UFO. This is another character that just shows up and I'm just like, who is this guy? What is his purpose to the story? I guess he's supposed to be this famous filmmaker, cinematographer, but you don't really see that in the film. Emerald makes a comment at one point that was like, oh, I met him on a set that we were working on, and that's how she got his number. And maybe the filmmaker was there in the earlier scene when they were on set with one of the horses, but I, for the life of me, can't remember him. So it's a little odd that he would just kind of pop up out of nowhere and it's like, oh, this amazing filmmaker that we were working with. And then I was thinking that it might have been nice if the cinematographer, the filmmaker, had some connection to the dad. Like maybe this was a filmmaker that the dad was always praising and was always saying to the kids, like, this is the guy that gets the shot every time. If you need the perfect shot, you go to this man. Because that would have made at least a little bit more sense as to how they know about this filmmaker. It would have been a nice way to tie the dad back into everything. And that might be the case. I do feel like I remember the filmmaker saying something of like, your dad did me a favor so I can do one for him. That might not be right. It was really hard for me to hear some of the dialogue in this movie. It sounded very mumbled in certain parts. That may be the fault of the theater that I was seeing it in rather than the film itself, but there were certainly moments of dialogue that I had trouble hearing. So that connection may be there and I just missed it. If it is, let me know in the comments down below. So overall, the characters just felt very bland to me. They felt very two-dimensional. As I said earlier, it didn't feel like they went through any significant changes or had any sort of character development throughout. Story-wise, I felt like the first act was pretty strong. You know, it starts off with the dad's death, which I feel like is a very tragic way to start the film. It gets you interested in what's happening. As I said, I think the second act really slows down, and then similar to Us, the third act just lost me completely. I know this is a story about the brother and sister, but it did feel like the film was leaning towards Daniel Kaluuya as being the hero of this film. And then at the third act, you have Keke Palmer's character who takes up the mantle of being the hero, right? She's the one that goes to the ranch and lifts up the balloon that ends up destroying the UFO. She's the one at the well taking pictures. And it feels like Daniel Kaluuya's character just like gets forgotten. Like he's not seen for maybe a good 10-15 minutes at this very climactic moment. And then at the end, after the UFO has been defeated, we see out of the smoke and rubble Daniel Kaluuya's character reappearing, and he's on his horse and he's doing this very like standard hero pose. And it's like, I don't think you deserve to have that pose. Where were you for the past like 15 minutes? You just disappeared. So yeah, I just felt like the person that was supposed to be our protagonist just took a back seat in the third act in the moment where I felt like they needed to be the most active. I know people are liking this film to a very typical summer blockbuster. I didn't quite get the summer blockbuster feel from this film. Overall, I just feel like stronger character development would have really elevated this film and would have brought it to that blockbuster film status. So those are my overall thoughts on Nope. Again, the film was a disappointment, and I hate saying that because I really, really wanted to like this movie. Technically, there are a lot of really cool things happening here with the UFO and the aliens, and there is a lot of stuff here that's done really, really well. I just think the story needed to be a little bit tighter and the characters needed to be developed a little bit more. And I feel like Nope and Us have similar problems where it feels like Jordan Peele got really caught up and excited about all of these interesting themes and ideas that he wants to explore in his films. But then the narrative and the characters kind of feel all over the place, and there's not enough time to fully develop the story or the characters because he is trying to explore so many different ideas within a 2-hour film. So I just wish he would streamline the ideas a little bit more and focus a little bit more on really developing the story and the characters. But those are my thoughts. What did you think of the film? I know a lot of people are walking out and loving it. So if you did love it, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. Is there something that I just missed about this film that I should go back and look for? Let me know your thoughts, and I will talk to you next time. Thank you so much for watching.